So that was Mother Maybelle Carter of the Carter family performing Wildwood Flower. So Stash, tell me a little bit about that technique of that bass line and the strumming and what's she doing there? How's she creating that sound?
Yeah, well, I was thinking kind of a theme of all these early fathers and mother of bluegrass guitar players is the techniques are born out of necessity. There's X amount of people in the band, two, maybe three, maybe four. Usually you're going to have a fiddle player or somebody with a high instrument that cuts through a string band dynamically to do things like fill up the instrumental space in between verses. Then you come to something like the Carter family. I don't know why they didn't have a fiddle, but they had to fill up the spaces. So basically, out of necessity, they have to find the notes of the melody instrumentally. And then also, because of the sparseness of the instruments, they also have to find some way to be playing the groove at the same time. So the technique is really playing the melody when it's supposed to be happening, and then the underlying rhythm of boom chuck boom chuck boom chuck boom chuck doom 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 dum 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 dum. Anywhere where there's not a melody, fill it in with a boom or a chuck, depending on where you are on the beat. And that's pretty much how I'd sum up like the necessity that Maybelle Carter had to fulfill.
That's a great way of describing it. Yeah.
And in terms of the nitty grit of her pick technique, the scratch, I don't know too specifics. There's people who have spent lifetime figuring out that stuff.
Right. So Timo, you've studied the old blues masters. How is this connecting to the old blues guitars?
Well, that's always my point. If all the Southern music and country music has its roots in integrated music, you couldn't tell the color of the man's skin, of Leslie Riddle's skin. You couldn't tell. His music is folk, country, blues. You can't put the genres on it. That's beautiful. It crosses over all that. Mississippi John Hurt can be like that too. You're not really sure where to put that. That's not necessarily blues. And it's American music. It's the mix of America, which is a mix of all these people and these Southern people, And I always liked the fact that AP's with Leslie Riddle learning all these tunes. They're kind of gold mining those tunes together, and the techniques born out of necessity, like you said, and then they get disseminated to people, and that becomes the foundation of a music. That's great.
Right. Well, we opened the show with a song of Stash's called G Runnin'. And one of the reasons we picked that song is because it's hard to talk about bluegrass guitar without talking about the G run. And so as we're kind of moving into the next cuts of Earl Scruggs and Lester Flatts and these others, we're going to start hearing the beginnings of the G run, which I guess some people credit Lester Flatts for kind of developing, creating. Tell us a little bit about the G run, Stash, and why that inspired that song.
Yeah, G run, it's one of the great punctuation marks of bluegrass. It can be a comma in between phrases, in between words, and it's almost always played in some form or another at the end of something, be it a verse, chorus, or the song. So there's lots of different variations on it. But that's how I think of it, a punctuation mark in bluegrass.
And to go a little more technical, it's basically in between when the guitarist is playing chords and doing that backup, it's a run of notes between two chords, basically, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's two modernist things going on in Stash's presentation from my perspective, which is it's self-referential. So it's the lyrics of the song are talking about the G run and maybe inventing an A run and a D run, 1, 4, 5 so to speak. And then the way it's harmonized and the way the overtones are working, it really hits your ear because it's not just like an intellectual ha 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 G run thing. There's actually substance to the overtones in the way the music's popping and the way the music sounds. the way the violin's playing it with the guitar. It's more than just talking about it or self-referential. It's actually sounding modern and taking us to a new place. It's very good.
Nice.
Yeah, we talked about the G run a little bit, I believe, in the modern bluegrass guitar episodes with Todd Phillips.
Oh yeah, it's unavoidable, right?
Well, but I think one of the things that I was thinking about with your song, Stash, is in talking about the comfort, the return to home, so to speak, and that we're listening to cuts that are getting pretty wild with some of the more modern players, yourself included, but you can go way out, and it's a little bit like, Timo, you can tell me the jazz licks that you end up kind of coming back to the melody, back to home base, back to a little lick or refrain that brings you back to the top again or back home.
I think there's a foundational thing that Stash and I share, which is you study the past kind of deeply. You do have a deep reverence for, Coleman Hawkins, Lester Young, Charlie Parker, the foundation of the music, whether it's jazz or what we're talking about today. It's ironic that we have Stash as our guest to talk about the more traditional stuff as opposed to talking about the modern stuff. And you want to study the past to draw your own conclusions for the future.
Yeah.
Totally.
But for me, that's part of like when I watch a Brian Sutton or somebody go off on a wild run, he always brings it right back with that G run. He always connects it back to that, and so it is a little bit almost I don't want to say an inside joke, but it's a little bit of a thing within players in bluegrass where, yeah, don't worry, I'm coming back to the G run. Just hang with me here for a little while before I bring that back home.
Yeah.
Right. And so our next song on the playlist is a banjo player, Earl Scruggs. And I'll let you, Stash, just tell us a little bit. What did Earl Scruggs bring to the music with his technique on banjo, that began to impact bluegrass?
Well, from my understanding of it, Earl Scruggs was kind of the final crystallizing factor in defining the bluegrass sound. There was Bill Monroe pre-Earl Scruggs and then post. And when he brought in the three-finger style banjo playing to the music, that's kind of what gave it its very signature feel and sound, which pretty much everybody associates with bluegrass now.
Right. And, it's that sound that Bela Fleck first heard on the Beverly Hillbillies opening song, which was performed by Flatt and Scruggs. And so his impact shot all the way to the modern age. From all accounts, he's also a very open musician and very willing to go with modern ideas and things. And also banjo technique before had, the frailing technique, which was just with the fingers, kind of a rhythmic thing that I know Stash has a lot of experience with the bands he plays in, with doing the old-timey music and things like that. And then Scruggs took the three-finger technique, but now he was using picks, metal picks, right, on those strings.
And you also have you have more virtuosos in the band, right?
Well, I think, the technical ability, is beginning to...
It's like more and more guys in the band are all able to play kind of on a high level as opposed to some of the guys in the band just being accompanists.
Yeah, and I think Earl Scruggs, I guess, you might call... there might be a few fiddlers that you would say were the first virtuosos of bluegrass, but Earl Scruggs was definitely the first, and along with Bill Monroe, where their technique was something that audiences really were responding to, as, wow, look what this guy's doing. This is amazing, as an instrumentalist. And so when I thought about the cut, Jimmy Brown, the newspaper boy, I just assumed it was Lester Flatt's playing the guitar. And then I learned, no, that's actually Earl Scruggs playing the lead guitar. And so that was kind of a surprise for me. I said, wow, okay, I didn't realize, that he was also a phenomenal guitar player and again, an innovator helping develop the styles. So let's give that a listen, and then we'll talk about it afterward.